my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So the concept today is Azure Web App. If you remember, we concentrate on last time virtual machines. When we test load balancer, what we done is we installed some application inside operating system, IAS server, some default page, if you remember. So that's a general way. Even from, I mean, even traditional data center concept also, customer will build a physical server. On top of that, he'll install an operating system. On top of that operating system, some middleware components. On top of that, web application. Whether it is a PHP application, whether it is a .NET, Python, Ruby, right? Anything, even Java, anything. So this is what, if they want the connectivity to the database means, they will install one more physical server. On top of that, SQL or Oracle, right? Anything, MySQL, anything. They create as a database and they give the connection to the backend. This is how things will happen. And later, virtual machines came in picture. Even virtual machine, same concept. Earlier, the application runs in the physical server. Now application runs in the virtual machine. There is no difference at all. Those two scenarios are same. Now, Azure Web Apps is a new concept that is PaaS, platform as a service. What is actually platform as a service? If you remember first day, infrastructure as a service till the hardware, right? Till the virtualization, Microsoft manages. We need to install the operating system, middleware, application, runtime, etc., etc. That's where virtual machine comes in picture. We install app on the virtual machine. Platform as a service, even we no need to worry about the virtual machine like Windows, Linux, etc., etc. You no need to worry, and you no need to worry about the middleware. Only thing is select your application, right? What runtime you want, what environment, right? What runtime environment you want. You want a Linux environment, you want the Windows environment, and what configuration you want, how much GB, right? What are all the features you want. This is what the top layer. So Azure Web App, and this is renamed as App Service. So Azure App Service requires, I mean, it's a PaaS solution where we can directly create a application on the Microsoft Azure, publish the Microsoft Azure web app or app service in minutes. Trust me, if you give me 2 minutes, right, I can give your application. That's what faster it is. On top of that, what you're publishing, what you're really maintaining any code, it's up to you, right? So let me go further. So before we discuss app service requires a plan. This actually provides the hardware. App service requires an app service plan. App service plan gives the actual backend compute, including right. So it's like how much CPU, how much memory, what is the storage we want, etc., etc. These things will come with app service plan. Without app service plan, we are unable to create any web app or app service. Try to understand. So and the benefits out of this particular and there are some types as well. Pricing tiers, if you take shared compute is there for the development, and just a moment. Okay, shared compute is there for the development. This is not really meant for the production, and the dedicated compute is there for the production. This is for the production. Isolated, high critical, right? These three different types are there in the app service plan. I'll show you when I give the demo, and the benefits of the app service plan is high level of security. You can get the better security, and it really gives the PCI compliance, right? PCI, payment card industry, I mean banking industry standards, etc. Everything it really maintains. So this is what this maintains high level of security standards and global scale with high availability. You can literally configure like Microsoft Azure provides 99.5% of availability. That is SLA, service level agreement, right? So if you're creating any app service plan and Microsoft officially says your app service will be available 99.5% in a month. So if that exceeds, definitely you can collect fine, you can find Microsoft, but that never happens, right? So whatever the service level agreement they give to us, they'll stick to us, they adhere to that. Due to some reason your app is not available and they'll pay you compensation. That is what SLA, service level agreement. For that reason we are paying for them. So next one, versatile framework. It's like whatever you application really. It may be Java, Node.js, or ASP.NET, or Python, PHP, anything. It's versatile. You can install. You can create any type of the framework, right? With web application. I mean service plan. So web app or app service, as I told, this is a PaaS solution. We can choose our operating system based on our requirement, and you can configure high availability as well, right? In case of the geographical failure, we can enable high availability. There are many things we can configure, scale up settings, scale down settings, etc., etc. There are many things that we can do with web apps. It's a simple platform as a service. Your web application is directly available. Only thing you need to do is whatever developer develops the code, right? For example, application. What is an application? Application contains some code. Application contains some code. These days, microservices are came, right? Containerization is came. Either your application build in a will be built in a Docker container or code, right? So either code or Docker container. Even in the Docker container, what it actually contains, your code. Ultimately, the first source of the thing, first source of application is a code, whether it is Python, Ruby, anything. And that code will be built in a way that it can deploy. That build will give you the artifact. Artifact, if you don't understand something, nothing to worry. We are going to cover all these things in Azure DevOps. So if you don't understand something like build, deploy, artifact, etc., leave it. So artifact in the sense it's exe, right? For example, if you are installing some application in your laptop, maybe if it is Windows, exe file required. If it is Linux, Ubuntu, you need zip file, right? So tar file, etc., There are many things really based on the operating system. Those are the artifacts. If you build, you will get artifact. That artifact will be deployed in web app. So developer develops the code that will be built as a package, and that package will be deployed on web app. By creating web app, what we are getting the runtime, right? So now you can select what web app you want: PHP web app, .NET web app, Java web app. You can select the web app, and whatever the developer develops, you push that, you publish the code. Simple. You publish the code to the web app. As simple as that. So this is the difference between traditional and web app hosting. Traditional directly on the server will have IaaS, etc., and on top of that application will be installed. Whereas web app hosting, you will have Azure Service Fabric at the backend. Again, it is server operating system and web server, everything, but we no need to maintain. Problem advantages. We no need to maintain even web server or anything. Directly we can web app and create the web app, publish our code. Yeah, this is important. Web app deployment slots. Web apps having additional capability that you can clone existing web app. Try to understand. You can clone existing web app and that web app, right? So for example, we are seeing outside, like there are many websites. Websites will be accessible all the time, like portal.azure.com, google.com, anything. We don't see much outage of that. Why? Because they will have similar kind of environment for testing, for version changes, feature updates, or anything, right? So they won't do on the web application that you are really accessing. What happens is, at the backend there will be similar environment. In web apps, the similar environment is a slot. We can clone the existing web app, which is a production, and we can do all our testing, new deployments, etc., etc. We are doing new deployments. What if the newly deployed application is not working, right? For that reason, we clone the existing web app and we do our testing. Even deployment is okay. After deployment, tester team will come in picture. They will test days and days, right? So these all things needs to, it's in a process. It goes in a process. For that reason, we won't touch the productive application. Instead of that, we clone and we manage it. That's what deployment slots. And for example, our testing is done, deployment publish is done, everything is green. All people approved to go to the production. Then what happens is, here you see green deployment is for the testing, blue deployment is the production, right? Same application, which is one is in a production, which is available for the customers. Another one is available for testing, deployment to the internal users, right? Not the users, internal employees. So once it is successful, everything is green, then what we do is, there will be a swap button. We click on the swap button and the production will be green, will be blue, blue will be green. Swap in the sense, production will be test, test will be production. So your latest application will be available for the end user with same URL. URL will never ever change. So this is what deployment slots. And deployment slots benefits, this is what so far I'm saying: minimum downtime for the productive website, and rollback deployment. This is important. So rollback deployment in the sense, for example, I have deployed, I'm not noticed very minor bug, and it is went to productive, right? Blue is green now, green is blue. I mean, productivity is test, test is productive. I found some bug. Initially, immediately what I can do, I can swap again. My old production will come back. My old production again come to the production. My test will come back to the test, and I'll fix the bug again. I'll swap. Try to understand rollback. Rollback in the sense, whatever the recent changes, we can take it back. That's what the rollback concept. So next, effective testing, because we have exact similar environment. Even for the testers, it is easy. Whatever we test, it is accurate, because we have exact same environment, right? Same web app, same operating system type, and same code, whatever we publish, everything is same. There is no difference at all. So effective testing will be in place. So sometimes if there is no web apps and deployment slots, so old days, right? Like in the on-premises days or the virtualization days, what happens is, if we, for example, if we want to test it, it's really hard, because to get the exact similar environment, we have to build another virtual machine. There might be many limitations, etc., etc. So that's what. This is what effective testing. And runtime stack, as I told, it's a versatile. You can select based on your requirement. Operating systems also your choice, but some operating systems, some runtime stack is identical for operating system. For example, if you take .NET, you can't install that on Linux environment, right? So that's Windows. If you take some PHP, so that goes to the Linux, for example. So that's what, there are two different operating systems, Linux and Windows, and continuous deployment options. We can do this for sure. So what is continuous deployment option? The it's not semi, it provides full end-to-end functionality. Okay. So it's a really continuous deployment in the sense, whatever developer develops, he push that code to the remote repository. If you don't understand something, I will come again, all the scenarios, whatever continuous deployment, DevOps, this again I'll come. Please try to listen, at least you will get few words. So continuous deployment in the sense, we do have developer team. Developer team will develop the code, like for example, Java, they develop Java code, and once they develop, we publish that to web app. And that's one-time activity, right? What if we want to, if someone changes the code, automatically web app needs to be changed. In such situations, we use continuous deployment. Continuous deployment in the sense, as soon as developer develops the code and changes the code and he commits to the remote repository, if new change identified in the GitHub or Bitbucket or anything, Azure repos or anything, I mean remote repository, if new changes are identified, then automatically your web app will be upgraded with the latest code. This is what. If you configure one time, you no need to touch this entire life, right? You'll create a web app, you'll create a continuous integration, and you leave it. There is no work for you further on the web apps and etc. etc. If there is any modifications, if there is any additional settings, you'll do. But once continuous deployment is configured, only work with the developer. Once developer develops the code, he push. That's it. So that's what continuous deployment. And this is how we create the web app, but name is changed. It's not web app service. So we'll see that. Let me type web app. Right? There is no web app at all. It is renamed as app service. Click on app service. Create. And select your subscription wherever you want to deploy. Select the resource group or create new one. App service RG01 and give the web app name. It should be unique because web app is accessible to any internet enabled device. So it will have a public endpoint. So give some name, new web app, some random number. Yeah. So, and this is the place where you can select code based or Docker container. I told you, even in the Docker container, the backbone is a code, right? This comes in picture of the Dockers, Kubernetes, etc., etc. Even in that situation, and let me set the context. As a Azure administrator, what we do, we should be in a position to create web app with given configurations. You will be given some configuration details like I want Linux, I want code based, I want web app with this name, I want in this location, I want so and so app service plan details. This is what. Everything will be given to you. You should be in a position to create and configure later if they required. Even that they will tell you, I want this setting to be modified. I want this feature. Is it possible? Something like you should be in that position, because we are not developers. We no need to deal with any code. We nowhere connected with code. Please note that. So now let us select code and select runtime stack, right? So runtime stack, let me take, I think I have very recent is PHP. So see, if you want Windows, you can take that. If you want Linux, you can take that. But PHP, always people take with Linux. Or if you want, you can take Linux. You can test it, not an issue. And location. Now, this is what the basic details that you create for the web app. Even before creating the web app, we need app service plan. Here is the app service plan details, right? So this is the Linux plan, West Euro. If you want to create new, give some name, plan name, that's it. And okay, let us give our own name. New app service plan 01. And this is the size, right? SKU and size. Click on size. We do have 3 different types. As I told, first one is dev test for less demanding workloads, right? And also, if you want to maintain a free web app, right? If you want to maintain a free web app, this is the place. 1 GB memory with 60 minutes per day compute is free absolutely. You won't get any bill if you select this particular web app. You can host your own web app, try to understand. So this is what. And after that, we do have this. Only thing difference is if version changes, features aren't changing, right? F1, it have memory storage. That's it. It don't have anything more than that. If you go to B1, right? Custom domains are coming picture. Custom domains, what is custom domain? Custom domain in the sense, whatever the web app name, you can bind to a domain name, right? For example, I want to create, okay, I'll explain custom domain little later. Once web app is created, I'll explain this. And other features like scaling, right? Scaling in the sense, we can, it's like adding new compute or removing some compute. This is what manual scaling. Automatic scaling in the sense, we will add one more node to the pool, something like that. I will show you. Next one is, even in here, you have multiple. So each one having some features attached to it, but this is purely development and test. Whereas production start from here. There are many sizes here. Each and every will have many features like storage is 250 GB, memory is this, and the traffic manager. I think we are going to do traffic manager demo. Maybe tomorrow we do that. So, and backups, right? So staging slots. This is what we discussed, right? So even the development will not support staging slots. Whereas this particular version, right, P2V2 supports 20 staging slots. You can create 20 clones of it, right? And auto scale. Auto scale in the sense, it's like when we use auto scale, let me give you some real case. We have some Amazon sale, Flipkart sale, etc., etc. At the back end, what they people will not sit there and increase the capacity based on the usage. No, right? On that particular sale day, no one is going to sit and increase the capacity based on the users. No, that is really not the case. Maybe they can't expect. Sometimes even normal day, people will fly to Amazon.com and they purchase more, right? There might be some situations that people, most of the people sit on the application and they use that, consume that. So we can't predict when this will be usage will be high and when usage will be less. For that, at the back end, what happens is they configure auto scale. They literally set minimum is 2, maximum is 20. So what happens is minimum 2 web apps will run for the same application, and if the auto scale setting, right, is able to see high load, for example, sorry, yeah, for example, some 75% utilization on the both web apps, because we configured 2, right? So if that is found, then it will increase by one more instance. It will increase one more like that. It will reach maximum 20 instances, and all those 20 instances will serve the people. And for example, sale is ended. Sale it is ended. Then what actually needs to done? There will be scale down setting, which if the all of these web applications are less than 50%, down with one more, down with one more. Like that, it will again come to the 2. So whatever our utilization is only the bill. Try to understand. So this is what auto scaling. And what I'm trying to say is the features is based on the particular version. Whatever the version we select, features will be based on that. For now,
Shankar,
I'm selecting. Yeah.
sorry, actually instance means web application or any application like that,
No,
right?
it's web. Same web app. Same web app.
Okay, any application related instance means web application
Instance,
what?
right? Okay,
Yeah,
okay. One
mm,
web app is an instance.
yes, okay,
One web app is an instance. It will
okay,
go
okay,
up to, in this model, it will go up to 10 web apps.
okay,
For example, one worker is working in our compound. If work is huge, if work is very huge, then we bring 3 more people, right? To finish
okay.
it early. That's what, same concept. Just a moment. Someone is. That's okay. Sorry. So I'm taking S1. And this is what the configuration. You can take any based on your requirement. You can take any of this. Even many applications, example applications are available in the internet. You can clone that, you can use that, etc., etc. And deployment. This is what the automatic deployment. For now, let it be disabled. Even we want the disable. And also monitoring. We covered this in the Azure Monitor. We no need to worry about the monitoring. Only
Sir,
thing is the basic. Yeah.
later, can we change the deployment to?
Yes. These two things we can do anytime. Deployment, monitoring, anything we can do. Even the runtime stack, right? We can change that. There is no doubt in it. We can do that. Later, we can change any settings apart from the name. So this is what creating a web app. Let that happen. So it is created, go to resource. And here we'll have the details, right? So what is the resource group? What is the state of the web app and the location, all common details. And so one more thing, you'll get URL here, right? Just copy this, paste in a browser. This is your web application. This is your web application homepage. We are not hosted anything on this particular web page. These are the basic default pages in the web apps that we create. It's saying you publish any code on this, we support this, right? So some welcome page. Now we do some deployment, but little later. But this is what your permanent URL of the website. Now you have browse button, same thing. It will open the browser and open this particular web app, and you can stop it, start it. You can restart it, delete it, right? So refresh, get publish profile in the sense sometimes, right? Developers will ask the publish profile. Then what you have to do is you have to click on this publish profile. Let me click it. See, some publish settings. It contains the keys and confidential information. You have to give this to developers in a secure way. Then what they do is they'll publish the code using this publish settings. That's it. That's what maximum you do. And reset publish set profile, the confidential information will be reset. It's like changing the password, but generally we don't do. That's what. And rest everything is okay. Yeah, this is what deployment slots. Deployment slots. We I think first we complete the deployment center. Then we come back to the slots. So deployment center is instant DevOps at the web app level itself, right? So at the web app level, we can configure DevOps and mean continuous integration. Continuous integration, we can configure at the web app level, and it supports the CI/CDs, continuous integration, continuous deployment. To configure that, first we have to make sure the configuration. Come here and general settings. You can see what we exactly configured. There are many settings, right? So if you want to enable the debugging, certificates, and WebSockets always on, these settings will be asked by developer team. You no need to worry what these are, why we used, and etc. etc. Developer asks and you configure based on his requirement. And generally, we won't directly change to PHP to Python, Node.js, etc. etc. Generally, whatever we create, we maximum what we do, we change the version. That's it. In real case scenario, we change the version. That's it. Once you pretty much sure about the stack and the version, come to the deployment center. And select the source code. Where this source code really resides. Is it external Git, local Git, Bitbucket, or GitHub, or anything, right? So for that, each and every scenario, we select something and we give the repository. For now, I'm using GitHub. Other scenarios, we come later. So one more thing, sign in as directly this is sign in one particular user, right? If you want to change, you can click here. Generally, the scenario is it will take from the browser. If I click change account, it won't take. Thing is github.com. GitHub.com saved this particular profile configuration. It saved it. That's why it is opening the browser and it is taking from the browser. If you want that different, I mean, first time, whatever you give, connect, right? So whatever you give, that will be taken. Initially, your account will be taken because you give the username, password, etc., etc. So to test this, you need GitHub account. Click on github.com and sign up for the free account. This is free account. So anyhow, I will tell you end to end GitHub. I will take one particular full session on the GitHub itself and Azure repos. Nothing to worry for now. So if you create this particular GitHub, you can give your account, and in your account, you developer, right? Let us think about developer point of view. Developer will have the access to the GitHub, and he'll access to the repositories, right? So repositories, click on the repositories. So I do have two different repositories, first PHP and PHP starter app. So for example, this is the application. Developer develops the code and he plays in this particular files. And after that, it's like he comes here. I mean, he asks us, I publish my code to this particular first app repository. Please configure CI/CD. Please configure automatic deployment. Then we come here, we connect with the same account, and we select the same organization, and we select repository. What he asked, first PHP, not the PHP starter app, right? So select that and select the branch. Generally, we'll have multiple branches. Developer tells you which branch you have to take. So if there are multiple branches, it will list here. Based on his requirement, you have to select exact branch. That's it. Nothing more than that. And if you save, this will deploy your code into web app. So this is the initial web app page, right? We'll see after the deployment what happens. So if you want to see how deployment is going on, just click on logs. Click on build deploy logs, right? This will take you to the GitHub actions. What we call that is GitHub actions. See? So build, it is building the code. It first set up the PHP, and if there is any composer JSON is available or not, right? Because this is not existing, it is upload the artifact deployment job, right? So this is what, this will take one by one. This is what build. This will give some artifact, some zip file, and the deployment actually it deploys on the web application. Download the artifact from the build job, whatever the artifact, whatever the image, exe file, zip file, right? That build in the build job, it will download. And it will deploy to the web application. This is what our web application, right? New web app 789.azurewebsites.net. Completed. The deployment is completed. Let's see. If we go to, even we have browse here. Click on browse. See, this is what it's asking, some username, password, a login, so on, so right? So let's close this. It's not required. This is what the differentiation, right? If you refresh this, that also changes like this. This is what. So we injected some PHP code in this particular web app. And one more thing. For example, if we configured continuous deployment, right? So developer changes some code. Let's see what happens. Anything. I'm not a PHP developer, but I'm trying to change something to visualize. Let's see what we found in the page. test 1, 2, 3, 4, enter username and password, right? Let me see where this is. Header 2 is enter username and password. Okay, let me do one thing. Edit this file. Just like a developer, I'm editing it, or I'm changing the code. Come here and I'll add, please enter your username and password, right? So hint is test 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what we are seeing there, right? Some hint. So that's okay. If we want, we'll change that also. If I click save, if I give some comment like modified enter text and some optional description. So commit directly on the main, commit changes. So I changed it. Try to understand. I changed it. Then we'll see what happens. It has to change here, right? So then there is a procedure. Go to the logs, in progress, automatically, right? And the commit message modified, enter username and password text. This is what we given as a commit message. So this is the proof that whatever we modified, that is being applied, right? So this is what, and after some time, if we go here, it will build, you know, this process, it will build, it will deploy, and finally this will, right? Deploy is happening and deploy is completed. Let's go. I will take browse. Please enter your username and password, right? So this is what, after developer changes the code, is there someone to push this code, publish this code? No, no one really needed to the publish code. It's configured with the deployment center. This is important, and this falls in our work. We need to do this, right? And the next one is deployment slots. Let's work on that. Deployment slot. Now, this is what the application, new web app 789, right? And DNS, I promise that I'll tell you the DNS. Let me go here. So the name here, if you see, HTTPS new web app 789.azurewebsites.net, right? The web app which I'm getting is azurewebsites.net. If my application belongs to some Airtel, right? It has to come with user registration, right? Airtel.com, whatever the website, .airtel.com needs to come. But here, for example, Airtel is a customer to Microsoft Azure. He built the web application. Airtel built his web application. Then what happens is they'll also get the same kind of URL .azurewebsites.net, but they configure the DNS in their domain, right? So this particular DNS binding will come in picture. So so they'll configure the they'll configure the binding with their domain, right? Choose domain. So because we don't configure any domains here, because this is test, we don't have any domains. Generally, if this belongs to airtel.com, your airtel.com will be visible here, and you will bind this to the your particular application. and you will select it as IP based SSL or SSNA SSL, and purely you don't need to worry about it. So this is what binding will be happen, and this will be URL which will change to your domain. The web app domain is this, but actually the binding, in the sense, this name will act as the configured domain name. That's it. So domains are, this is in the Azure website domain, will be brought into the airtel.com domain. That's it. And deployment slots, add slot. Click on add slot. You can give the name. Please watch here. So .azurewebsite.net, and I just give slot. What happens? The web app name as it is -slot.azurewebsites.net. That's what happened. And you can clone the settings. Whatever these settings that new web app contains, clone the setting. This is what we get exact copy of the test environment. Add it. In theory, what happens at the backend is one more web app will be deployed for you. One more web app. So close it. You can see this is one web app and this is another web app. If I add hyphen slot, let me take duplicate. Hyphen slot. Right? So that's what. And it won't take the code. Only settings are cloned. Try to understand. Only settings are cloned. The settings are like what PHP, what version we chose, and other all configuration, but not the code, right? So for example, we are okay. We developed this particular page and we want to bring this to the production. For example, we are not done anything. If we want to bring this to the production, consider this is latest application, we tested, we deployed, and everything is working fine, even features, releases, etc., etc. We want to bring this to the production and we want to bring this to the test. Then what happens is click here, right? Click on swap. Source and target. This particular source will change as this particular target. This is production. Production will be test, test will be production, right? So once just swap it.
So for deployment slots, we need to configure deployment center for that, right? So to push the code.
No. Yeah, you can push the code to slot also, but both are two different options, right? Both are two different options.
But the reason is we have only the configuration settings, we have it, but
Yes,
code is not copied, right? So again,
100%.
the developer needs to push their production codes to the deployment slot, right?
Let me
Same.
tell you what happens is in real scenario, if people are using deployment slots, they won't configure deployment center, right? So it's, see, we don't know tomorrow with which name they create the slot, right? Slot name is a question mark now. If we configure the automatic deployment center on so and so web app means that obviously stays with this particular name, isn't it? That stays with this particular name, that will create unnecessary issues. Why we choose the slots? Because production will not be touched anytime. Whatever the testing should happen on this slot, once this is done, we swap it. Right? So if you want, we can configure on the slot 100%. There is no doubt in it. We can configure on that. Right? Even deployment center is enabled here. You can configure it. No one is going to stop. But generally, two different things you can mix or you may not mix. In the real scenario, I'm saying anything is possible, but how your organization is looking at is really point. So for example, I have swapped. I'm not changing the URL. Let me refresh. This is the new one, isn't it? And this is old one. It contains the code of the PHP. That's it. This is what the slots. And whatever the testing that will happen on the test, once it is completely fine and you're okay with this particular piece of code, and you will swap it. That's it. Again, production will be test will be production. This is what deployment slot, but very important and very easy to use as well.
How much downtime required, actually, swapping?
I think you just saw, right? It's not even a minute, isn't it? Maybe less
Yeah,
than
yeah.
a minute or some seconds. Some seconds.
I think no data, this is okay. Suppose any data backend, how much time?
Anything,
Yes.
anything.
Okay,
It's like
okay.
swapping. What
Okay.
happens in the swapping is it is name binding, isn't it? New web app 789.azurewebsite.net. And this name is new web app 789-slot.azurewebsite.net. What happens is only this name interchanges, whatever the data it configured, whatever the database it connected to, it's really not a matter. Only name swapping. That's what the technique here.
Okay.
Yeah, that will not take really some seconds.
Sir, I have one more query. So here clone means it clones everything, right? But here
No. Clone settings. See, what is the use if we clone the entire application code? I mean, deployed. We don't want deployed one, right? What happens is testers will test on the newly deployed code. They won't test on the existing code. Existing code which are in the production, that is already serving in the production. Why we need to test that again? After n number of tests, it is passed and it is went to the production. Now we need a test environment with the similar settings, same settings, and we deploy latest code and we test on the latest code. We won't test on the old productive code, isn't it?
okay. So in this situation, we developers will deploy the new code onto the slot deployment slot.
Yeah, that's 100%.
So they test on the slot deployment slot.
Yeah, once it is done, they swap it.
Okay.
And if you want to configure some networking, this is the place, right? So if you want to some VNets, private endpoints, VNet integration, right? So hybrid connection in the sense that is for the on-premises. So you can literally configure whatever you want on the network point of view, and scale up, scale out. Scale up in the sense it's like taking to the other version, right? You can configure scale out settings. If you want to do a manual scale, this is the place, right? For example, manual scale, this is what we do. First, we complete the manual and we go to further. So for example, this web app, if I want to scale, S1 is there. If I want to take this to S2, right? You click on that, apply on that. This is what you do. Simply this is what you do. Nothing more than that. And it will start and stop. The requirement is it will it will stop and start. Please remember, before we doing, same applies as virtual machine, right? OS disk swap. Same thing happens here. And scale out. Here, by default is manual scale. And if you want to configure some custom scale, right? So minimum and maximum default, right? Instance limit, minimum one, maximum, I don't know the version, how much it supports. I think 10 supports, right? Yeah. So it start with one and maximum it reaches to the 10. That's it. So these are the scale settings that we configure on the web app, and based on the load, right? Scale based on the metric, scale to a specific instant count, right? So there are two things, but what we use is based on the metric only. So add role, here we have to add role. We are not added any role here. Here we have to add role. Add role. What criteria, right? What criteria we are looking for? For example, average, right? Minimum, maximum, sum, last, count. Generally, this will be average. And metric namespace, app service plan standard metrics. And inside this metrics space, namespace, there are many metrics like CPU, data in, data out, memory, right? Memory percentage, CPU. This is what this will show real-time data. And if memory percentage, right, equals to, and so you can add it, right? So instance details, etc., etc. So for example, let me tell you, yeah, operator is equals to, and memory percentage average here we mention, right? So greater than 70% is, I think 70, no, 80 is okay. Till 80 we can go, not a problem. So see, this is where it's standing, right? You can literally change like that. If you want to scale down, just bring, sorry. You can do like this. You can do like this, but 80 is a good number. If the percentage is greater than 80% for 10 minutes, how many minutes? No, 10 minutes is very, 5 minutes is okay. And that's it. And action, the operation, increase count by, right? Increase count by 1. What we are doing here? If continuous 80% usage of some web apps, for example, initially we configured minimum one web app, right? This one web app is continuous 80% for 5 minutes. Then what happens is one more instance. How many you need to add, you have to decide here. I'm mentioning 1. That's quite fine, right? So with this setting, you can achieve the condition. It will verify the memory percentage and increase by 1, right? So this is what scale out thing. And minimum, maximum, it will go to the maximum 10. That's it. You understood? On the Amazon sale, you will get this. If you want multiple add scale conditions, you can literally do it. I mean, additional scale settings if you want. And let us do scale down as well. I think we done the scale up. Let us do scale down. So minimum, maximum is okay. Add rule. First we add rule. This is average memory percentage. equals to metric value is 50%, for example, less than 50%, duration for 5 minutes. Maybe this time we go 10 minutes is best way because scaling down, right? So on the average, then action is decrease count by and 1. That's it. Simple. 2 different settings, one for the scale up, one for the scale down. That's it. You're done. If you save, these things will happen. I mean, auto scale will be configured on the web app. That's pretty much we do on the web app. Rest everything, we don't need to worry. Everything will be taken care by the developers.
Sir, after these settings, so once threshold is met, then automatically the rules will apply and instances will trigger and instances will down, right?
Down and up, two things will happen, right? If threshold is high, I mean, if memory percent is more than 80% for continuous 5 minutes, one instance will be added. It will go like that, go up, maybe it reaches some 10 count. And after some time, your Flipkart sale or Amazon sale is done. Then what happens is it will, if memory percentage is less than 50% for 5 minutes, it will down by 1, 1, 1, 1 like that. It will reach 1 finally. So if you want to configure snapshots and backups, snapshots is preview. Very recently, it's been added. So if you want to configure backup, this is the place. You can literally configure like how we want to backup this particular web app. So, and the identity is like we already discussed the web app itself, a user. And if you on backup schedule, it's like backup every 1 day. Generally, we backup on 1 day. And time zone retention, you know already. Yesterday we discussed on it. Retention is like some 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, up to you, right? So keep at least 1 backup, yes. And if you save, backup will be triggered on every day for this particular web app. We have to give the storage where the backup will happen. We have to configure the storage for that. So we don't have any storage account. If you select the storage account, that will happen. Is it fine, web apps? But we don't do more than this, 100%. We are not the developers. We won't do more than this.
So this
But, yeah.
Sir, these web apps will be running on the VMs only, right? So can we
backend? It's in backend. It's VM only. We don't have any view on that.
Okay.
Yeah. We don't know in which VM it's actually running. We do have, we can see whether it is Windows or Linux. That's it. Because we are selecting in. Okay, that's it from my side. But on the web app front, we need to have the little knowledge. What is app service plan? How we can change the app service plan? What is the deployment slots? What is the deployment center? And the scale up, scale down settings, backups, right? Sometimes we modify the identity and configuration changes. We do sometimes the configuration changes, etc., etc. These things are really important, and get the published profile and give this to the developer. And anything, if you know what is GitHub, etc., that is added advantage 100%. Anyhow, we come again, the deployment center concept, we are doing this here this way. In Azure DevOps, I'll tell you differently. So that is important for us, not this, right? So, okay, then if no doubts, we'll wind up today and we continue tomorrow with different topic.
Okay. Thank you, Shankar.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.